Welcome to MMA Al Dente. I'm your host, Billy V. I'm here to talk to you about UFC 270. My cat's probably going to jump up to my left in 2 seconds. But yeah, UFC 270 is in the books. It was a good event. A good event. The main event was, excitement-wise, I want to say it was a disappointment, certainly compared to the promotion. Although I knew the fight could play out in that, not in that specific way, but I knew it could go to a decision, which I think some people didn't even consider that a factor. I'm not even sure. I'm sure some people didn't consider that a factor, but largely a lot of people thought this could go to a decision and it'd be with Gane out kickboxing Ngannou. And that's what it looked like we were on our way to after the first two rounds. Ngannou was losing. He was losing on points. Cyril Gane was dancing around him and, dancing very well. And not just dancing, but outstriking him. Hands and feet. Gane was winning that fight. And Ngannou wasn't able to get off on the feet. He was, dare I say, outclassed. I really think he was. Now, with his power and his chin and his physicality, he's able to reach other chins. I think Ngannou is still one of the best strikers in the world in MMA. And, a lot of people are quick to dismiss somebody when they're outstruck, when their technique is clearly not as strong as another fighters. They're dismissed as being levels beneath them. Ngannou's striking is still there. Believe me, his chin, his power, his physicality, like I said, he is... that just makes him one of the most dangerous fighters on the feet in the world. I say he's number 2 after Gane. And but anyway, how Ngannou wins this fight is a surprise to, I want to say, everybody. Where the champion Ngannou is down 2 rounds and then he comes back and wins the fight by winning the last 3 rounds with a wrestling game plan. Not where he crashed into takedowns and found himself on top. It was his game plan. I want to say what makes it even more impressive is the fact that it was probably his D plan, if not maybe his C plan. But definitely wasn't his A plan or B plan. Francis Ngannou, he has those skills. I'm sure he was anxious to show them off. But he's got a, distinct advantage against everybody else in the division on the feet. So this may be the only time we get to see him with a wrestling game plan. And I really liked it. Again, it didn't make for the most exciting fight, but it really showed that Francis has those wrinkles in his game, which he needs. And, I don't want to make it seem like he's BJ Penn or Marcelo Garcia, whoever, but he, because that didn't look great on the ground. Just seeing that level of grappling. These guys are both good. They're both good submission. I don't even want to say submission artists, but they have good submissions. But they're not grapplers. And you could see that looked like regional grappling in a UFC title fight. But it's what we needed to see. Francis Ngannou, it's what he needed to do to win. And first of all, his wrestling looked really good. But the grappling itself, even though he went for mount and, different threatening with different submissions, these guys are both competent grapplers. And Gane rolling for the heel hook, which, positionally may have cost him the fight. I think it cost him the round and the fight. But who knows how that fight would have played out. I know Gane wasn't in great shape in round 5. But anyway, despite it looking like regional grappling in a UFC title fight, which did make me cringe a little bit, it was really, really cool to see. It was fascinating to see Ngannou implement that game plan and, outfight Cyril Gane. He knew he was scoring points, and Ngannou isn't just, there's always the threat of the knockout. He's not just some top game guy when he's on top. He's looking to kill you. And a few times it looked like he was about to get it done, just positionally gaining on Gane. Got the full mount, took his back. Would have been cool to see him finish Cyril Gane. But still, seeing positional dominance on the ground and also that wrestling dominance was something special from Ngannou. When you look at his career now, you're going to be able to say, hey, like, I love saying this for fighters, but when somebody's got a reputation as being one way and then you watch his other skills get him big victories throughout his career, that's what this is. His grappling got him the Kimura over Anthony Hamilton, which I want to say he would have finished him anyway, but it got him that. And now his wrestling got him a 5-round decision over the decision master in the UFC, Ciryl Gane, and his former teammate and all that horseshit. Really cool victory for Francis Ngannou. Good performance from Ciryl Gane, too. That guy in a losing effort, his first losing effort, he went 25 minutes with the best fighter on the planet, and he hung with him. And he had more than his share of moments. He won the fight on the feet. And that's something that's going to be, in everybody's head going forward. He's considered, I think, the top guy, the top striker in the world in the UFC and MMA. So, good performance from both guys. I was happy to see Ngannou win. I was pulling for him. And, that was like almost ideal. I said before the fight, my ideal Ngannou performance is where he drops at least a round, he's facing adversity, and then he gets a late finish. He didn't get the finish, but to win the fight with the wrestling game plan in the last 3 rounds was just, cinematic in its own right. And that was a really cool performance. All right. Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueiredo. That was another really good fight. Similar to the first fight, although, I'm sure there were a lot of differences, but in the sense that it was a really close 5-round fight. Really close. No point deductions this time, and Figueiredo won a decision. I've looked up on MMADecisions.com. If you don't know that, you should check it out. MMADecisions.com. And it looks to be pretty evenly split in the scorecards. And they fluctuate a little bit. There are some 49s, but largely it's split even, 48-47 between the two fighters. That's the media, an aggregate of media scores. So those are the MMA media members scoring that fight. Not that they're experts, they certainly aren't. They're just fat people like me, but I trust them. They're not just some random fans. And, so that shows you it was a very even fight. And I said after the fight initially, right when the fight ended, I said, we're walking into a split decision here. And I believe it was unanimous. I think I was wrong on that, although the judges did split the rounds. I looked it up on MMA Decisions. I forget who scored what for whom, but it was Brandon Moreno winning rounds 2 and 5 on 2 cards, and I think 2 and 4 on another card. But that's how I saw the fight largely was I saw 2 and 4. I saw Figueiredo winning rounds 1, 3, and 5. I thought he was losing round 3 up until the last 10 seconds, whatever, when he got the knockdown. So overall, was a very even fight. Really close. I thought Figueiredo stole that round in round number 3. I thought he won round number 1. And round 5, I gave to Figueiredo as well. I had it in my head going into round 5. Winner of this wins the fight. So, stop rocking the table here. Really cool trilogy. And I don't know if this closes it out. It closes out the trilogy, but I don't know if this closes out their rivalry. There was talk of the 4th fight. And look, they are dead even. They are dead even. 1-1-1. I think that's only happened once with Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard. And Frankie got that first victory in the 3rd fight, and they never fought again, despite having 2 classic fights, consecutive classic fights, that really made Frankie a legend. So this one, Figueiredo walks away with the ostensibly with the victory. He's the last one standing. He's got the belt. But Moreno went 1-1-1 with the current champion, and he finished him. So, really, overall, I want to say it's one of the greatest trilogies in MMA history. I can't call it the greatest, and I got to say it's probably the closest. It's probably the closest, the way it ended out. Gray Maynard and Frankie Edgar, like I said, they were pretty damn close themselves. And Gray Maynard never fought Frankie without winning at least one round from him. And also a shout out to Gilbert Melendez versus Josh Thompson. The way that one played out, the third fight was razor thin. I want to say they won 4-1 in rounds in the first two fights. They split the fights, each one winning 4 rounds. And then the third fight was razor thin. Whoever won 3 rounds, and it went to Gilbert, split decision. So this is among the great trilogies, and it may not be referred to as a trilogy for too much longer. I don't know. I mean, it could be Figueroa versus Askarov, Pantoja, who he'd already beaten. It could be Figueroa versus Moreno again, number 4. I don't know. I feel bad for Brandon Moreno. You know, he's one of the beloved good guys at MMA. And Davison Figueroa, I'm happy for him, even though he's considered the bad guy. Which, that's how these fights are marketed. And look, these guys have their own share of it too. You know, their own share in their reputations. Figueroa, he comes off as the heel, and he kind of plays the heel. But these are both good guys, and I know they have each other's respect forever. But yeah, great trilogy. Happy to see it go to a really close fight where both guys get over, so to speak. Neither one is walking away like a loser, but Figueroa gets twice the money that he was gonna get, and he gets the championship. And at the very least, he's fighting in a championship fight in his next fight. So great win for Figueroa. He becomes a 2-time champion. That's I mean, in a way, that you could look at that like it should hurt your standing or your reputation, but it only helps. He's a 2-time UFC champion. That makes him Hall of Fame bound, in my opinion. Third fight from the top, Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. That was a great fight. Good performance from both guys. I thought Michel clearly won it, but Fialho, whatever, came out like a bat out of hell in round 1. And he was just throwing down. He was in the pocket, trying to stay in the pocket and get in Pereira's face. But Pereira was, tough as fuck. He really is tough. He's only got one loss in which he was finished, the Dusko Todorovic. And he showed his durability again tonight. And also that veteran savvy, which gave him the victory, really, here. He kept his composure. He's got great cardio to be able to dance like that and move backwards the whole time, not to mention throw explosive strikes, spinning, wild, flipping horse shit. He's a really fun fighter to watch, even if he's become more of a point fighter in the UFC. But you'll see another flying knee from him or something if he fights another few fights in the UFC, which he will. He's on a great winning streak here. That Tristan Connolly fight couldn't be a more clear anomaly when you look at his career. But hey, that was one of my favorite victories of the last few years. Tristan Connolly versus Michel Pereira, whatever the fuck. And Andre Fialho looked really good and tough. He's UFC bound. He's going to stick around. And I think he's going to have some interesting fights in the UFC. I'm glad his chin held up and he was able to stay strong in round 3. It did. I had it in my head he would get finished if he was the middle of a losing fight in round 3, but he hung in there. So really good performance from both guys, and a clear victory for Michel. Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Cody Stamann. What was this, like 30 seconds? I thought that was going to be a tooth and nail battle. I just thought Cody's too, not that he's too basic, but he's too good to let this fight be anything but basic. He can hang in there, be the wrestle boxer, and make this a close fight, potentially even steal a round from Nurmagomedov, if not 2. And instead, he got choked out in 30 seconds. Shot for a takedown. Nurmagomedov used a guillotine to fight it, and then when he had some, footing standing up, he locked up the power guillotine, and just, man, that thing was locked up, literally. When they say, oh, he's got it locked up, it was locked up. That was turning a key. and they hit the mat. Stamann was tapping immediately because the submission was in from the get-go. It was locked. Great win from Said Nurmagomedov. He's one of the absolute top prospects. He lost a close fight a few years ago at this point, maybe a year ago, I don't know, to Barcelos. Barcelos, which I'll get to soon. He lost last night. He lost to a UFC newcomer, Victor Henry, who really was one of the stars of the night. But my point is, Said Nurmagomedov emerges ahead of the guy that beat him last. And he made some major strides here. This is a great win. Stamann's only been finished once. It was to Aljamain Sterling, and that was on the ground in a Sulev stretch. This was somebody going through Cody Stamann. And I'm really excited to see this guy fight again. I can't fucking wait. Who's next? Trevin Giles versus Michael Morales. Rough loss for Trevin Giles. Michael Morales looked really good. I think he was hurt early in the fight. Kept his composure. Hung in there. Lost a few minutes of the fight. Trevin Giles found an opening, cracked him, and put him away. It was a TKO. He didn't put him out, but he put him away. He hurt him and seized on the opportunity. This guy, Michael Morales, is a really fun prospect. He was respected enough to be a favorite over Trevin Giles coming into this fight, which made me say, hey, I got an idea. I'll bet on Trevin Giles because I'm not fucking stupid. And it turns out I'm fucking stupid. Great win from Michael Morales. Really great debut. Trevin Giles is a guy who's beaten many great fighters at this point. Great fighters. No, very good fighters. And he's bona fide UFC level. So that means Michael Morales is bona fide UFC level and then some. Great win in your debut. Tony Barcelos versus Victor Henry. This was a very, very interesting fight. Very intriguing from the get-go. Victor Henry comes out. He's in Raoni's face. And he's relentless. And it was one of those fights in which you realize this newcomer doesn't have any UFC jitters. He doesn't have any UFC jitters. He's not afraid because he's up against a really good fighter for his UFC debut. I just mentioned Michael Morales versus Trevin Giles. Tony Barcelos is about as tough as it gets for your UFC debut. Victor Henry stepped in for somebody. This was like a month ago. I forget who it was. I was supposed to fight Barcelos, but the fight was booked on like a week's notice, Victor Henry, and then the fight got scrapped. I forget why it got scrapped. COVID, I'm assuming. And it was postponed about a month. He held on to the booking, held on to the opponent, which had me thinking, man, he's probably wishing, Jesus, can you move shit around, get me a normal opponent for my UFC debut? No. He kept the opponent, which was a very dangerous guy. I don't think Barcelos was ranked, but largely considered a top 15 fighter, or a very top fighter. And Victor Henry went, didn't go right through him, but he just went around him like it was nothing. Victor Henry was in Barcelos' face, hurting him, just relentless pressure, and the pressure can, if it doesn't break you, it'll absolutely discourage you because you just feel it. You can see fighters, they feel it. This is not going to stop, and it didn't stop. Barcelos hung tough. He's a very tough fighter, and he was game till the end. But Victor Henry won, I want to say, every minute of that fight. That was the debut of the year, for all I know. At the end of the year, you're going to see many good UFC debuts, but I'm telling you right now, this is going to be one of the best debuts of the year. And that includes the opponent. You have to consider the opponent is Tony Barcelos. So, great win for Victor Henry. He's one of the stars of the night. I should have looked up the bonuses. Fuck. I don't even know who won the bonuses, but Victor Henry was my MVP. I can tell you that. Who the fuck else? I think next was Tony Gravely versus Simon Oliveira. This was a more conventional UFC fight with the wrestler and the great grappler and decent striker himself, Tony Gravely, out wrestling Simon Oliveira. He was just relentless with his takedowns. You know, when you're able to shoot and take somebody down, anybody like that at will, it's I mean, you'd be a fool to engage in any other type of fight. And Tony Gravely was doing, as DC pointed out, just enough on the feet, which he was doing, you know, doing well on the feet, but just enough on the feet to get Oliveira to open up. Because Oliveira was very dangerous, going for guillotines early on, had a few tight ones. The first one, after a flying knee, which, you know, that was his opening. And Tony Gravely was able to fight through it. And then there were a few more guillotines, and Tony Gravely showed he's able to fight through it. He's not some, you know, some hack, some amateur. And he's definitely a legit UFC fighter. He's one of these new age wrestlers. And it was cool to see him get a nice victory like that over a UFC debutant, to talk like a cocksucker. And, yeah, I'm a Tony Gravely guy. You know, I don't think he's the best fighter in the world, but I think he can beat a lot of really good fighters. He's going to be around the UFC for a long time. By the way, I think I could say the same for Oliveira, for putting up with that fight and, you know, just showing tenacity in a losing effort. Showing tenacity, toughness, and versatility to some extent. Okay, who the fuck else? Frevola, Matt Frevola versus Genaro Valdez. This was awesome. Great to see Frevola. He's a Long Island guy. Fights just, you know, he lives a few miles from me. And Matt Frevola looked really good last night. He clipped Genaro Valdez, hurt him. He was actually clipped himself and hung in there, which is something I wanted to see, to be honest, as a fan of Frevola. And Frevola just took Valdez out. He hurt him. He dropped him 4 times at least. I think it's considered 4, even though I know Joe Rogan thought there were a few more knockdowns. There was some, you know, half knockdowns. And, yeah, whether it was 4 or 6, it was a beating. And in the end, Frevola made the right call. He said, I can't put this guy away, even though he obviously could have, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to. And he put him on the ground, threw hooks in, and pounded him out. I don't even know if he got the finish from the back mount. I forget at this point. But he put him away on the ground. I know at one point he had the back mount. That could have been the finish. But it was just him making a decision. Look, I've got the edge in grappling. I've got the edge in striking. I've been knocked out a few times before, and this guy has hurt me. Fuck this. Let me take him down and put him away. That was a great win for Matt Frevola. I'm pretty sure he got a bonus. Or, I can't be sure, I guess. But, really good victory. Matt Frevola, he's won a lot of decisions in the UFC. I don't know if he's ever had a finish. I know he had that arm triangle choke, I think, on the Contender Series. But for him to get a first-round TKO finish, hurting the guy on the feet and on the ground, that's great. And that's going to keep him around for quite some time. Great win for Matt Frevola. Who the fuck else? Jack Della Maddelena versus Pete Rodriguez. This was a decent fight, you know, largely Pete Rodriguez being outclassed. And in the end of the first round, he was just clipped and never recovered. Jack Maddelena put him out, and or Jack Della Maddelena, he just looked like the superior striker. Smashed his face, had him bleeding out of his nose within a few minutes, and just smashed his face some more and put him out. That guy's a really good striker. He's really composed, and Pete Rodriguez was thrown back, clipped Maddelena a few times, but that's when you could really see, okay, this guy is a very comfortable, very good striker. And he just hung in there, found his opening, and put Rodriguez away. Great win from Maddelena. This guy is a top prospect in the UFC. Can't wait to see him fight again. Vanessa Demopoulos takes out Silvana Gomez-Juarez. This was a very fun fight for however long it lasted. I have it in my head, it's about 2 minutes. Could have been 3. But Silvana Gomez-Juarez was the heavier striker, and really heavy striker for a woman, especially a woman at her weight. And she cracked Vanessa, dropped her just a minute or 2 into the fight. And, the commentators were all over the power, the visible power from Silvana. And she landed a big right hand, hurt Vanessa, but as soon as they landed, literally within 5 seconds, or maybe there was one quick scramble or whatever, but almost right away, she locked up the arm, with an overhook anyway. And you could see her working on this arm bar. And then it was slow, methodical. She caught like a sloppy angle at first with her legs, but she had that elbow deep in there, kept battling, and eventually got it. Really great comeback, really awesome fight. I love when you can see a knockdown and a submission in the same fight. It's about as good as it gets, especially when it's, the submission, or the victor getting knocked down. And great win for Vanessa Demopoulos, to get a finish like that, especially showing her durability and tenacity and yada yada and all the horse shit. And then afterwards, she's a really bubbly, lovable girl. Sometimes I get a little annoying with the Joe Rogan. I love you, Joe Rogan. It's like you could tell they want him to go, great. Why don't we be best friends and you come on my podcast? I'll give you half my money. What do you say? But aside from that being a little annoying, it was cool. She's affable and fun and whatever. And she jumped up in Joe Rogan's arms and let him, took a nice pose, whatever. I'm sure she got some nice pictures. At the very least, she got a really nice moment out of that. And that was cool to see. Good victory. And then the first fight of the night was Kay Hansen versus Jasudivicius. Jasmine was just too big. And I don't want to just attribute it all to size, because she's a good fighter, too. She's a really good fighter. She's good on the ground and good on the feet. And she was too much for Kay Hansen. She was much better at range. She was much better in the clinch. A lot of hard knees from her, using her length very well. And while I can't say she's better on the ground, she had the better wrestling. For her 5'7" frame, she was the better wrestler. You could say Kay Hansen doesn't belong at that weight, which is something I do say. She doesn't belong at that weight. She should have never gone up. I mean, you have to know you're going to be fighting people 5 inches taller than you. She was already short, I think, for strawweight. She belongs at strawweight, not at flyweight. And this was an eye-opening fight. I'd be very surprised if we see Kay Hansen fight at flyweight next. Very surprised. As for Jasudivicius, she was a Contender Series fighter. Now she's a bona fide UFC fighter. I have high hopes for her. I want to see where she goes next, and I can't write her off, or I can't write her in as the greatest fighter in the weight class. But one of the better prospects. And this was a solid victory. She didn't get the finish, but she got to showcase all of her skills and look largely dominant everywhere. All right, that about wraps it up. Let me see. That does wrap it up. Still mad we didn't get to see Ilia Topuria fight. Hopefully he gets to fight soon, even though he took himself out of that fight with a shitty weight cut. Whatever, you can make excuses blaming the body and whatever. But anyway, overall, it was a lot of fun. I can't say it was the best UFC event of all time. It certainly wasn't, but as a fan, I really enjoyed everything I saw. Every fight's got a story. There's a component to every fight, something to take away. You learn more about each fighter and all that good horse shit. But seeing Ngannou win that fight like that was really, really the that was the story I took away from the night. Ngannou wins the fight with a comeback performance in which he's wrestling. A wrestling performance in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Really cool. Congratulations to all the victors, Figueroa and Ngannou in particular. And I will be back. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the fights.